Hello and welcome to another episode of the Mark Groves Podcast. You know, the subject of narcissism has been a big one that's been all over the internet, all over social media, and for good reason. You know, I think it in some ways has been a bit of a buzzword, you know, that we sort of label any behavior that's avoidant as being narcissistic. But with that said, learning about this subject is actually incredibly important. How to navigate the dating process to be able to identify people who might be narcissistic. And if you're in a relationship with, whether it's romantic or friendship or what it might be with a parent, how do you navigate it? And, you know, the significance of this is that our partner selection will obviously determine a large part of the direction of our lives, also the quality of our health and the quality of our life in general. And, you know, the research from Harvard looking at well-being, and originally this was called the Harvard Men's Study, followed people from, you know, a young age all the way till their 80s. It's one of the longest running studies on well-being, and now it's following other generations. And it compared people from poorer neighborhoods to graduates from Harvard, which obviously are from, in general, higher socioeconomic status. And they looked at the quality of their life, and they saw that the greatest predictor of the quality of your health at age 80 was actually the quality of your relationships at age 50. And not just romantic relationships, but just relationships of all kinds. So healthy relationships are in some ways protective of our health, you know. They make harder days less hard. And again, not needing to be in a romantic relationship, but just support, having support. So this was a really important subject that I wanted to navigate in my course, Dating 101. As you're in the dating process, you know, most people think, hey, I'm waiting to be picked. Like, oh, you like me, I like you. Oh, you want that, I want that too. Like, we're waiting for someone to choose us. And one of the most powerful shifts I had, and I teach in that course, is that you are choosing. Like, does this person align with you? Are they a good fit for you? Do they align with your values and your standards? Do they treat you and people with respect and kindness? Do you like them? Which is interesting because it's such a simple shift, but it's so powerful. And I wanted to interview one of the best on this subject, but also one of the best in the area and arena of relationships. He is a relationship alchemist, and you know I love that word, alchemist. And it's Stefanos Sifandos, and he's been on the podcast before. He's incredible. You're going to be getting a special treat because this is a lesson from my course, Dating 101. And he has trained elite special forces soldiers, Olympic gold medalists, high-performing CEOs, entrepreneurs, world champion fighters, couples, and individuals. I mean, talk about the ability to be able to work with diverse people, but, right, it's all similar stuff. You know, like, I remember Tony Robbins saying that humans can only present their problems in so many ways, and we need to have more tools than the problems that are presented. And within ourselves, right, we need to find tools that help us uncover, and there's nothing better than being empowered in the dating process. You are sorting when you're dating, and I hope that you find yourself incredibly empowered by this episode with Stefanos Sifandos, an incredible man, an incredible teacher, and his voice is actually very wonderful too. So let it soothe your soul. Before we jump into the episode, please, wherever you listen to it, go give the episode a 5-star review or a written review, because that's a wonderful way that you could support the podcast, and really means so much to me. So if you could just take the time to do that, I would be so appreciative. Thank you. And without further ado, here's Stefanos. Well, I am so excited to have my good friend Stefanos Sifandos. Did I say that right? Stefanos Sifandos. Stefanos Sifandos. That is about a Greek name as you can get, isn't it?
Basically, my middle name is Spiros, so yeah, it's
Greek. Spiros. I grew up with a guy who's Greek, Spiros. So yeah, I get it. Yeah. So I'm excited to have you here. And for those of you watching, we're about to learn, I would say, some of the most important work in terms of questions I get about how do you identify narcissism and the red flags that are sort of at the beginning of the relationship that really are the ones that lead into these traumatic bonds that are super highly wounding and manipulative and all those things. And it almost feels like when we're in them, we're so buried in the mindfuckery. I don't know if there's another term for that, that really equals it with the same pizzazz, but that we can't see out. So thanks for coming today and talking about this and giving your perspective. I think it's such an incredibly important topic.
Yeah, thank you for having me here, brother. I appreciate it. It's definitely something that I hear a lot as well in the space. You know, how do we, I had a narcissistic mother and I had a narcissistic ex-husband, and narcissism, or this term, this word narcissism, is thrown around a great deal. And there's complexity to it, right? We were discussing that earlier, but there definitely are signs that you can look for, character disposition in people that, oh, you notice a pattern, you think that doesn't seem quite on point. There's something not quite right there. What's happening?
Yeah, in that space of like, there's an intuitive hit. And one thing that we've been exploring through Dating 101, and this is, within week 4. So one thing that we've been exploring is the relationship to our intuition and our nervous system. That like often what we just sort of canceled as I don't have to worry about that. Or like, ooh, that's just a feeling. Like really getting back and rooted into the wisdom of like, where we like want to intellectually understand a red flag, sometimes the body is actually conceptually aware of a red flag that intellectually we're like, that's fine. You know what I mean?
We want it to be fine, right?
Right.
We're coming off, we're feeling a little desperate. We haven't dated for a while. COVID has us not feeling too well. We're feeling isolated, whatever it may be. We were really hurt by our last relationship. We're not feeling good enough. We want that next partner to be that partner that saves us, especially if that's a wound or a pattern for us as well. But more importantly, we want to find love. We want to create unity and connection. And we're very, very good as human beings justifying our actions and justifying the choices that we make and the
aren't we the best?
we have, whatever it may be. We can come up with really good justifications. I think everyone has the capacity to be a great lawyer.
It's so true. It's like, I will find the gray in everything here just to justify staying in a pattern.
Yeah, that's right, because that pattern's familiar and it feels safe, irrespective of whether it's hurting us short and or long term, right? And that's where a narcissist, whether it's someone that has a clinically diagnosed NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, or someone that's very high on the trait of grandiose narcissism or even vulnerable narcissism, more grandiose narcissism in this case, so that's more, I don't want to say more the common one, but it's more the one that mostly people refer to. And we can break down the differences.
Yeah. Let's do that. We could do that as you explore it.
Yeah. So, ultimately that vulnerable narcissism it can also be known as covert narcissism. And it's a form of narcissism that it's the distinction is neurosis, like it's neuroticism, right? And it's feelings of shame and introversion, whereas grandiose narcissism, it's extreme on the scale. The vulnerable narcissism is extreme on the other end of the scale, so to speak, right? But they're both pathological, so to speak. They're both pathological ways of being in the world, and so that overt, out there, grandiose narcissism is both are insecure. Both come from a place of, I'm insecure, I don't feel good enough, but they deal with it or they express it in the world in very different ways. And the level of manipulation is different. One is more, again, out there, overt. I'm going to identify myself with status and things and material possession and the trophy partner and so forth. And I want to be seen with certain people and I have to be seen in a very particular way to validate myself and feel better in myself. And the vulnerable narcissism is, it's a little different. It's more introverted. It's more recluse. And it's not that it's rare. I get sort of stuck on this one because narcissism is very complicated. It's more complicated than borderline personality disorder. It can be really difficult to spot someone that has narcissism. And we'll talk about, some of those ways that we can do that. But ideally, we want to understand that it is a mental condition. It is a behavioral condition. Some people believe that it cannot be quote unquote cured. I sort of tend to disagree. Maybe that's the optimism.
I do too.
Yeah, I think in the right environment, people can shift and can really, really change. But there has to be a lot of variables that impact that. But to just say something is, or you've got NPD, you're stuck with it, I think that's a little harsh. I don't think that's going to help individuals that have NPD and individuals that are impacted by narcissism either.
Yeah, I think those types of clinical diagnoses can sometimes be identity traps. I
Yeah.
think when we are aware that we have a tendency to be narcissistic as a form of, because really, like those and please correct me if I'm wrong, the order of that type of personality, the order of those traits is a protective mechanism of sort of like covering deep unworthiness and deep shame, and so you never even really have to touch it. It almost seems like an extreme form of disassociation. I mean, it must, because you're void of empathic, the experience of empathy.
Yeah, and some would say that the literally the physical aspects of our brain, the moving parts in our brain that are responsible for empathy and connection and mirroring and so forth, are disabled, damaged, etc. And that, back to that grandiose sense of narcissism where there's this unrealistic sense of superiority, right? There's more than just arrogance and vanity and ego. And this is where some of the disassociation comes from, is I'm so above and superior to others. I'm so better than others, yet I need others to feel better because I need the contrast, and we're relational beings. And there's a instinctual part of us that are yearning to connect to other human beings, that I can't be understood by anyone, yet I need you to try and understand me so I can justify how good I am by you not understanding it, right?
Right.
And they're too good for average people or ordinary people. They're too good for everyone, yet they need everyone. And that can be super fucking confusing.
Yeah, it sounds confusing to experience. I think about my response to being heartbroken in college was that I became more obsessed with understanding relational dating behavior. And I became way more like, before that, I was never into casual relationships. All of a sudden, that's all I was focused on. And the other thing I noticed is that, like, if the reason I'm telling this is because I feel like if the word narcissist was more popular back then, I would have likely been labeled it, because I was avoidant. I was really afraid of closeness. But what I would do is get validation, get validation through intimacy, but I would always keep people at a bit of a distance. And I wasn't necessarily I wasn't dishonest, but I was totally out of integrity with myself, and I would say, I don't want a relationship, but I would treat them really well and treat them like a boyfriend. So I'm sure it was like really, I'm certain, because I was told it was extremely confusing. And for me, I was just terrified of actually being seen, terrified. And, I had the conceptual understanding eventually of like, this isn't working and what's wrong with me that I can't be loved. But it like took the right question at the right time,
That's often what it does take, is the timing of a question to get us into a state of, wow, are my behaviors really palatable? Are they aligned with who I truly am? And I share very much that experience as well, that deep, deep fear of intimacy, because intimacy was always unsafe and volatile growing up. It was very unknown for me growing up. Was I going to receive love, or was I going to get the shit beaten out of me, literally?
Mm-hmm.
And growing up as an adult, I yearned for intimacy. I yearned for closeness and connection, because our voids often become our values, right? Voids as children become our values as adults. And I thought I could find it through sex. And so, that's where one night stands, casual sex, prostitution became the norm. Yet I wanted something deeper. I craved for something deeper, yet I feared it simultaneously. And when you look at individuals that have very high traits on the narcissism scale, you'll often look at their history and at their conditioning, and it's been a very abrupt, abrasive, volatile upbringing. They have had violence, they've experienced abuse, disconnection, disassociation, they've experienced abandonment, rejection, humiliation growing up, usually from primary caregivers or people that are meant to be safe harbors of truth for them growing up, parents, elder brothers, uncles, aunties, teachers, priests, whatever it may be, you know, people of leadership and power that have taken advantage of them. And so what they do is, as adults, well, no one's going to fucking take advantage of me anymore. I'm going to take advantage of people, and I'm going to protect myself, and I'm going to protect that part of me, that little boy or girl that needs to be protected. And I'm going to show the world how fucking strong I am, because I didn't have that ability when they were younger to do that.
Wow. You think about like how many people have been through experiences like that, you know, and I think the hard part we often have when we think about sort of the devastation or destruction that narcissism as a behavior relationally can bring, but also in the work world, because capitalism really does thrive and promote narcissism.
Individualism.
Right. Yeah. And individualism. So it's like, can we make a profit at the cost of the planet or at the cost of people? I mean, those are narcissistic decisions, and you'll make more money and get more bonuses, you know, but let's keep it romantically relational here. That's a whole other talk, which, you know, I think about the devastating pain that when you are in a relationship with a narcissist, the just sort of disposal that occurs after is it's hard for us to have a compassionate lens for what shapes such a developmental trauma, you know, and then the survival strategy that's associated, the coping mechanism is, it's like that idea, hurt people. You know, I remember hearing the question from someone, I forget who, but it was like, instead of asking why the narcissist, ask why am I matching to one? Like, why am I
attracting one? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I just want to be mindful that's not voiding the compassion for the pain that occurs there, but literally looking at it like a behavioral scientist or a researcher to say, what are the patterns here and how do we change them? Because we could only change ourselves. You know, hoping the narcissist change is part of the actual pattern that keeps us in the behavior.
Well, also narcissists are attracted to empaths, and they're attracted to, and some empaths in their shadow expression are victims. Right. Well, most would be, right? So, and being an empath or an HSP, a highly sensitive person, it's not a condition, it's an intrinsic part of who we, you know, I believe 20% of the population are classified as HSPs, right? And so in the shadow expression of that, you become this victim, you become so sensitive to the outside world that you don't know how to deal with it. And so being a victim keeps you safer, because when you're a victim, you get the attention that you need, and maybe the pity, the sympathy, even the empathy that you need to feel safer in your body. And so narcissists, grandiose narcissists particularly, thrive on that empath, that person that looks up to them, that needs them, that is codependent, that is desperate, right? That has that fear of rejection and abandonment, and is just going to look at that narcissist. Oh, I honor you. I bow to you. You are everything to me. Let me be in your space. You know, like they need that. The narcissist need it. So they need each other.
Right. They like dance together, and you know, that's the challenging part, is taking responsibility for the side of the dance that engages in that misses the red flags and falls in love with the story, you know, and falls in love and misses the inconsistencies or the like feeling in our body that's like, hey, but it's, you know, it almost feels like sometimes, you know, because I've certainly been on the other side of that dating experience too, where I was like falling in love with the story and the idea and missing all the fucking so many red flags. A base camp at Everest I missed. And I remember feeling so victimized. And I remember my friend saying to me, yeah, that's so awful that she always gave you a choice. And I was like, ugh, fuck you. You know, it's like one of those feelings, which again, like I'm always mindful because that can feel really dismissive of someone's experience. It was what I needed to hear, because all of a sudden it was like, wait, I'm missing the important information that says I need to change and have a different behavior here, because I'm allowing this. And that's, man, that's one of the most brave, most courageous, powerful shifts is to make that transition of standing up fully, of adulting, of, you know what I mean?
Oh, I do, man. And that is one of the ways, and not to jump around too much here, but that is one of the ways we diffuse the power a narcissist has over us, is not to give them that attention and that energy, not to engage in the gaslighting that often accompanies narcissistic behavior, not to engage in that at all, to not argue, to not give it energy, because that's how you you basically burn the flame of a narcissist. Is you remove the oxygen, and the oxygen is your attention. And so if you're giving them attention, you're begging for them, and you're asking them, and you're needing them, and you're telling them how wrong you are and how amazing they are, and that you're sorry, and that if they see you in pain and suffering, that fuels them. And so one of the ways that we diffuse that is with compassionate orientation towards that person and towards self, and being very solid in the decision that we make of, I'm no longer giving you any energy, and I'm okay with that. And here's my healthy boundary, and setting healthy boundaries, learning how to say no. But that can often be very, very difficult for that individual that plays the victim or is accustomed to playing that role in their lives.
Yeah. And that's such a change too. I think about how old did I feel when I was in that behavioral pattern? Like when I was in the fawning, chasing, not standing up for myself, I probably felt 7, 6, where I was like in the chasing aspect.
Yeah. I was young. I started young, man, as well. Yeah.
Yeah. That fawning can be a real, like healing fawning is challenging because it requires the courageous use of our voice and a boundary at the cost of connection to other. But what you realize is you maintain yourself. It's this huge leap that says, I'm going to say no, I'm going to have this boundary, I'm going to stand up, and like costing relationship, but realizing no longer costing self. That's such an amazing moment.
Yeah. That's empowering. That's you taking your power back, bringing it back to your own center.
Best. Yeah. The best. Okay. So what are some of the red flags, the things that we would notice early on in the dating process, in the relating and communication, et cetera?
Yeah. So a couple of things, you can tell if it's an issue-based or wound. My wife, Christine, says, an issue-based or wound-based relationship. She uses that terminology often. So, you can tell that it's an issue-based or wound-based relationship within the context of, a narcissism victim dynamic playing out, when, the sex is fucking super explosive. The sexual connection is just fucking boom. It's just wow. Like, to the point, my friend, I was talking to my friend yesterday, and he said, man, I don't know if I can keep pursuing this archetype of woman where she's just aesthetically, physically so beautiful, yet I'm attracting psychologically, emotionally damaged women. And I said, what you're after is a 10, and a 10 isn't always a 10 in every other department that you need to make a relationship healthy. Now, this isn't saying that every attractive person, and beauty is subjective anyway, but every attractive person or every person that values their aesthetics is damaged in every other area. Not at all.
Yeah.
There are patterns that we can notice in society, and that can be one of them, right? I remember that guy, what was it, the hot, sexy or hot, crazy scale or something? That guy.
Yeah. The hot crazy scale.
There was some truth to that, right? Like for men and women, like there's some truth.
All humans, right? Yeah, it was.
Absolutely, there's some truth to that. The arrogance that comes with that, like the narcissism, right? But again, that sexual explosion can sometimes mean that there are some issues in the relationship. Love bombing. This is an interesting one, right? Your audience understands love bombing. I'm sure they do with you.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit, but give more information.
Yeah, so it's they're going to shower you with love. The charming individual that is just giving you everything the moment you meet them. They are giving you everything. They are showing you. They are putting their best, not foot but feet forward. Everything, and they are bombing you. And then all of a sudden it goes cold. Now, sometimes they may completely disappear because they've got what they needed. They got their hit and they're out. They're on to the next one. They have girls, guys on rotation, whatever it may be, and they're out. They've got their validation. They feel good. Or it can just be that they pull right back, and then you are so enthralled in that, sexually, emotionally, everything. This is the person for me. Wow, I can't believe I've met this person. You're in the limerence phase of relating, the honeymoon period. Your hormones are all over the place. You believe that this is your person, and then boom, nothing. That's that love bombing, that charming, right?
Yeah.
That charming place. And so narcissists will often treat you the way they want to in order to feel better about themselves. In other words, their behavior is super unpredictable. That's another sign. There's inconsistency.
Hot, cold, I care about you. Wait, I don't really want anything right now.
But they're intellectual. and they're going to justify it in a really intelligent way that makes you think. Like gaslighting is another part of it, right? Where they make you believe that you're wrong, that you're wearing a blue sweater, but they're telling you it's red and you believe it's red, but you know it's blue. That level of manipulation. And if you start noticing that where your partner or you're dating the person that you're dating is making you doubt yourself and you're questioning who you are and you haven't really done that before, that's another sign as well, right? And so you've got to be really mindful about that. Other signs are, and there's many, there's so many signs. Center of attention. They have to talk about how great they are, their accomplishments, their accolades, their achievements, right? Particularly with grandiose narcissists specifically, right? This helps them feel better about who they are and smarter than everyone else. Because what did you say at the beginning? They're insecure.
Right.
They're disconnected. They're full of shame. And they're trying to mask their shame with superiority, with feeling better. So if you're noticing a pattern of that person telling how, oh, I saved this person today, they nearly lost their job, but I came in and I convinced the boss to do this. And then there was this lady walking with her child and she tripped over and I saved it. Like, if you're noticing these stories constantly, it's probably a telltale sign.
Where they're just like sharing stories of achievement, of like wanting you to affirm.
Yes, seeking affirmation. And if you're,
it doesn't come from the energy of pride. It comes from the energy of validation or like pushing up.
Yes. And if you start talking about yourself and you start mentioning some of the things just that you've done in your day or you experienced, notice if they're asking follow-up questions. Are they interested in what they're saying, or are they immediately making it about them, bringing it back to them? Oh yeah, I had that experience too. Yeah, let me tell you about that. That's a very common thing. And that's again a gray area, because that can just be people being insecure and wanting the other person just to value them as well. And they don't
especially in the early dating process where we're like, listen, here's my resume. Okay. It's pretty good.
It's the best.
Yeah. Well, and I think about that, the conversation about the gaslighting, because I think about that as being like the denial of someone's reality, right? But what's so crazy about it is like, I think one of the main symptoms as someone who's dating someone like that is you start to feel a bit bananas. Like you're like,
yes,
am I losing it? Because my world, like they're telling me I'm going crazy and I'm being insecure and that I'm making stories up and I just don't trust them. And I'm, like, think about how many times you are important to me. I'd never do that. No, that text you read, someone sent that to me by accident. Or they want something. I don't want anything with them. She just loves me, or he just loves me, or whatever. And they're crazy, right? Like, I think one of the red flags too is when all the people they've been in a relationship are crazy. Like when they tell the story as if all the exes are crazy, and it's like
their fault. Never the narcissist.
It's like, listen, there's a common denominator here, my friend, and it is you.
It is you.
Yeah, it is you. Yeah. So what else are you thinking?
Yeah. Empathy is a big one. I mean, this is probably the biggest one. Like, this is one of those, center points of, they lack the ability to make you feel seen and validated and understood. And if they do, it's through superficial means, right? But they can't grasp on it. Someone with NPD, and there's a distinction between, again, people throw the fucking term around narcissism, but it's a clinical diagnosis, and you essentially have to meet 5 of the 9 criteria according to the Diagnostic Statistics Manual, right? Number 5, I think we're at now. And even that diagnosis is very ambiguous as well. That's another conversation, but it's a serious thing. But the empathy piece is big, right? And so notice, like, when you're out with them, how are they treating other people? How are they treating a waiter if you're at dinner? How are they treating the movie theater attendant if you're at the movie theater? Notice how they're treating other people. Another characteristic is the friendships piece. So you'll see that narcissists don't have many, if any, long-term friends. And they don't have many friends at all. And they don't have many long-term friends. And there's a reason for that, right? Because they don't treat them well. And eventually that shit gets weeded out. Unless, of course, that narcissist has put themselves in a very, very powerful position, right?
So people want to be around them.
Correct, around them.
To source power from them. Correct.
That's right. Yeah. And so that can be confused, but it's easy to see, like, is there an intimacy or a closeness there? So the empathy piece and they don't have any or many long-term friends or, many friends at all. They'll have many superficial acquaintances, Oh, they know everyone. They have a name and a number for every one of your needs. I mean, I'm that type of person in terms of I love connecting people. Like if you said
Yeah,
to me,
yeah,
like
me
even
too.
before we were talking about someone and I said, oh, do you know him? And you said, yeah, I'll put you in touch. I'm like, yes, because I love
Right.
that. I love
Me
helping
too.
people too. Right. And we were talking about something else and you said, well, I want one. I said, I got you. Like, I
Right.
love that. Right. But that's different to not having any rich friendships. I have
Right.
multiple rich friendships. So our friendship, as an example, we're very new friends, and I can see it being just a very meaningful friendship in my life because that's the
Yeah.
type I
Agreed.
make those friendships. I thrive in them, right? Narcissists can't do that. They can't open their hearts. They can't be vulnerable. They can't show their shit to their friends. They have to be considered perfect. That's another trait, right? Like if you see yourself as, or if you see the person that you're with, and they're always painting this picture of how amazing they are, but never speaking about their flaws or faults. They're
Hmm.
perfect. That's a red flag. That is a red flag.
I'm thinking of like, I know probably two people in my whole life that I've met that fit the diagnosis. Like
Yeah.
that I have friends who are in relationship with. What was common about them is one, just the way they dismiss the needs of their partner, like completely, like it was about their world and da 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 da. And they were totally out of integrity with a lot of things. And all the people started to notice, right? Because all the friends of the friends were like, hey, like something's fucked up here. The way that they talk to you in this situation is not okay. The way that they're gaslighting you is not okay. And what I noticed is they started to then put wedges between, like, your friends are lying to you. You can't trust your friends. And so they start to create this isolation, which abusers do, right? Is they
Yeah.
create this space between you and your family, between you and your friends. So I think it's so important that you notice, how do they talk about your friends? Are they already starting to plant
Yes.
seeds? Like, oh, like one I'm thinking of is like, I remember them saying like, oh, your friends are really promiscuous. Your friends are this, your friends are that. I don't trust you going out with them. It's not you, it's them. So I want to protect you from them, or they don't treat you well. Meanwhile, they're like, hey, your partner's a dick. I haven't used that word in a long time.
That's, but that's a good point. And that leads me to, I was thinking of other things and the criticism piece. Right. So that not only are they constantly criticizing and trying to segregate and separate things, right? But not only are they picking on your friends, they're picking on you. They're teasing you. They're pushing the edges of that. Everything you do, all your habits, right? The way you eat, the way you sit down, the way you dress, call you names, sarcasm, passive aggressiveness. Like if there's an extensive behavior of this, you've got to be careful. Like even particularly when you were excited about something and you want to celebrate a win in your life, irrespective of what it is. It could be that, I don't know, you got a promotion at work as an example, right? Or you just got a new car and they knock you down. Or they'll say, oh yeah, you were able to get that new car because I came into your life and I made you happy. And because you're happy at work and they gave you a raise, like that type of thing. And you may think, are you serious? Like, are they going to say that? Yes, that's to the extent that it can go to. And they can justify so easily, Mark, so easily, so believable.
And they're so good. Like their ability to master language and manipulate emotions
Yes.
and create hooks, like create these little hooks. And what I find occurs is one, creating a dependency on them for many things, needs. And you said something really powerful before. I mean, you've said lots of powerful things, but one of the things you said that I wanted to point out was that you said they might meet your needs, but superficially. So like they'll take you, this I think is one of the biggest red flags, is when someone takes you on a trip in the first moment they meet you. Like, let's go to, you're not going on very big trips right now, but let's go to Greece. Let's go to this. And they like take you on this swooping, it's too much.
It's compensation.
Right. And it's in the movies, it's everything. But in reality, right, it's way out of Disney. It's like, or you need to be a princess laying on a train track or up in a tower that some person needs to come and save you from. And like being wounded isn't a way to seek connection, like to connect through that, then you're always dependent on them to fill the hole that the wound is,
Yes. Hence the needing each other.
Yeah, it's such a slippery, easy slope. The charisma, the slickness, all the saying all the right things. And I think we
Yeah.
often only associate it with men, but it exists in
No,
both.
of course it does.
And because it's a compensatory strategy, you know, so we all have compensatory strategies, and we tend to model one of the ones from a parent who we inherit the sort of same patterns generally that they have till we're brave enough to face it. And the people in this course are certainly brave enough to face it because they're facing it, which is beautiful.
That's right.
So yeah, any other thoughts?
Yeah, there's a couple more, man. I mean, there's probably many more. The gaslighting piece, we spoke to that. That's definitely the one where, you become wondering, am I too sensitive? Is it my fault? Am I doing something wrong? Why am I apologizing so often? That could be another thing as well. Right? You something's not right, but you can't identify it. And you're confused. Like, confusion is a big part of it. You start making excuses for your partner's really fucking
big.
Toxic and unhealthy behavior. That's another one.
That's what my friends did for them. Was like, they'd be like, yeah, but they had a hard time at work, and they're this and they're da da da. And it's like, yeah, that's right. And another one is, the definition of the relationship. But they struggle to, there's a dancing, there's an avoidance of, yeah, we're sort of together. Yeah, but I mean, do we really? It's a little early right now. Oh, no, we're together. Why you got to put so much pressure?
There's no. Oh, we don't need labels. We who needs labels? Look at the era that we live in. We don't need labels. Why do you want labels?
Why are you so passé, so old school?
Yeah, we don't need that. And I mean, another one that's connected to that as well is, which is, well, we just started dating. That narcissist will overtly cross boundaries, and some that are spoken and some that are unspoken, in terms of overtly flirting with other people, staring at other individuals in a sexual way, like in front of you as your partner, disrespecting you. Not that there's anything wrong with looking at someone else, but when it's in a particular way that's just unhealthy or disrespectful.
When it's leering and disrespectful and it's hurting your partner.
That's right. And it doesn't have to be spoken about. Like, it's pretty fucking clear. But narcissists don't have that frame of reference, that they get that, oh, this is going to be a hurtful thing. Like, they just don't get it. And that which leads me to the next thing, which is they're right about everything. In their opinion, they're right, and they don't need to apologize for their action. They don't need to apologize for what they've done. They struggle to hear. They're not active listeners, that's for sure. They can't understand you. They won't take responsibility for their choices and their actions. They won't compromise. They won't meet you in the middle. If you're seeing this consistently, this is an issue, right? This is a big issue. Another one, which is when you finally, you want to break up, you're like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I feel like I'm going crazy. They panic.
Yes.
And there's an intense, extreme turnaround from their behavior to how they are, because how they're behaving is like, you don't really want to be with me. Why you're behaving this way? But then when you want to break up and you finally put it down, massive panic, which can then turn to massive aggressiveness and rage, and making you wrong and blaming you and gossiping about you and to your friends.
Threatening you,
manipulating you, telling all your friends that you're wrong, like real destructive behavior after the panic. It can be very, very painful.
Yeah, that discarding and that incredible, like, you think about that, like some of the people I know have been in relationship with that type of person, and stories you hear, it's just like they're willing to take them to court. They're willing to make up stories. Yes. They're willing to do so much stuff to protect themselves from experiencing rejection, abandonment, and shame. All three, either one. It shows you how important it is that we really get good at monitoring and seeing red flags, like how imperative it is. It's not just a red flag. And, there's funny memes about it of like, I want to see how red the flag can get, but those are funny to think about. But when you're in it and your body's going like, hell no. And we're like, yeah, I mean, we could just see a little longer. So yeah, I think about how so much of it is they start to become the source of our self-worth. We feel good about ourselves. They take it away. And you said they can be highly critical. And in doing that, they start to create like chips that they can then deposit back in with gifts, purses, trips. The gifts are
The distractions, with the superficial.
Oh yeah, you saw that text. Here's the thing you always wanted that's elaborate and over the top, but you'll never feel truly connected to me. And I think it's so important we recognize that when we start to meet needs for security, safety, whatever, with wants.
Yeah,
you know,
it's a distraction, man. It's a massive distraction. Those gifts and those pleasing.
Okay, so that's a lot of really beautiful information. So curious, just to sort of close off, what would we do in terms of like preventative measures, and how do we rescue ourselves? And that could be your closing soliloquy.
Soliloquy, I love that. Empathy and compassion, I'm a big fan of that. Is if you move into aggression and disdain, it's only going to feed them and really not help you. So meet them with empathy and compassion. Surround yourself with people that you trust, respect, and revere to give you a perspective on what they're seeing, as well, to help you. And then set really firm and healthy boundaries and learn how to say no and honor yourself. And primarily, all of that is do your inner work, because you're the common denominator in your life. Seek a coach, seek a therapist, whatever it may be, trauma specialist, a somatic worker to help you with your traumas of attracting the same kind of person over and over again, or even attracting this person in your life. And what are you doing to bring that in your life? Where can you elevate your own sense of self-worth? So engage in things that you can do to elevate your own sense of self-worth. Ground in nature, get competent and confident in your physical body, challenge yourself on a regular basis and overcome those challenges so you feel empowered.
Yes.
Surround yourself with people that see you and love you and appreciate you, and practice learning how to receive. There's some things.
Fuck yeah. To like surround yourself with people, learn how to move your body, eat nutritious food, get into a state of you are the source of worth for yourself.
Yes.
And I love that idea of like how important people who speak truth into us, like don't go to the friend who tells you everything you want to hear. Go to the friend who tells you the truth.
Yeah.
Anyways, brother, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you. Everyone, got a link to him in the lesson. Go check him out. Go follow Stefanos on Instagram. He is filled with brilliance, knowledge. And if you're looking to work with anyone, he's a good man to work with.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.